Charles Adams is a former IMF official. He joins us now from Singapore to look at the significance of Zhu's appointment. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Charles Adams. Right, first of all, it's just really keeping her word, I suppose.
I would think she would probably have reached some understandings beforehand, but I think in terms of the overall situation, this is very much the status quo. We have in the last month seen a European back to head the IMF. We now have an American in the number 2 position again, with Lipsky being replaced by Lipton. The small change is this 4th Deputy Managing Director position going to Zhu Min, and that will mean, assuming he's confirmed, that we will have 2 Asian representatives in the senior management of the IMF.
Well, that surely is more than just doing the talk, isn't it?
Well, I mean, this is something which I suspect has been in the works for a while. Zhu Min was already a special advisor to the managing director. This gives him more prominence. It gives Asia a greater role. In the bigger scheme of things, I think the key issue will be exactly how the work program changes with this slightly bigger, slightly more diversified team, which will include a Japanese, a Chinese, as well as an American and an Egyptian.
Yeah, well, what about the challenges facing Christine Lagarde? I mean, they haven't changed since, of course, she was on the campaign trail. I mean, the European contagion story continues to be an even greater headache, if anything.
Indeed, I think the short-term challenges have become very elevated, and particularly with the risk of spillover to Italy, with the downgrades in Ireland. This is becoming an extremely serious situation. So that challenge is there on the euro area, but at the same time, and consistent with what she outlined when she was seeking the position, she has to also focus on these more medium-term, longer-term issues in terms of emerging market representation. So she's going to essentially be having to both firefight and put in place some of the reforms which will be bringing greater diversity in the fund, addressing the 3 C's that she outlined in her speech the other week. It's going to be a formidable set of challenges.
Do you think that the prescription, alongside what the European Central Bank's doing, and indeed other members of the Eurozone, tied with the IMF, is correct?
I think that the approach that the IMF and the Europeans took in the early days of the crisis was the right approach. Unfortunately, when there are issues about solvency, then one has to expand the range of instruments and tools. And this, I think, is the key challenge at the moment, because essentially what is required is a combination of adjustment, new money, and some kind of private sector involvement, hopefully in an orderly way. Now, I think what we're seeing at the moment is a process whereby the Europeans are struggling to come up with a way of involving the private sector, subject to constraints about trying to avoid disorderly defaults. And I think this is the critical stage of managing the euro crisis, and I think it's going to be the stage that determines essentially whether the euro area moves forward in its current form. So it's a very critical stage.
Charles, thank you so much for joining us. Charles Adams there, joining us from Singapore.